Welcome back to Wedded Whispers, everybody. I'm your host, DJ Willie D, and today's episode is focused on how to hire wedding vendors within your budget. And we all know how daunting wedding planning can feel, especially when you're trying to stick to a budget. But don't you sweat it. By the end of this episode, you're going to have all the tools you need to find you the best vendors without blowing up your budget. Whether you're planning a small intimate gathering or a huge celebration, there are definitely ways to save while still getting great services. Number one, set a realistic budget. Don't just start with some arbitrary number and say, okay, we're going to spend $20,000, let's go. That's really not the best way to go. Before reaching out to any of your vendors, you really need to have a clear understanding of what your overall budget is. This is going to be your guiding star throughout the entire process. Not just talking about that big number, but we're really going to sit down and decide where the priorities are. And we're going to place value on the things that matter the most to you. Number one, you're going to break down your budget. Start with the most important things, not what some website tells you to start with. If entertainment is going to be the cornerstone of your big day, that's where you're going to start. If your food is going to rule the day, then start there. You get the idea. Prioritize your must-haves. Ask yourself, what's most important? Is it the photographer? Is it the venue, the food, the DJ? Identifying these priorities helps you know where to splurge and where to save. You want to expect 10% of your budget to be set aside for last minute expenses, anything unexpected that might come up. Now, 15% seems to be the magic number here, but you've got a little room to maneuver within that. And just a little side note here, if you have non-negotiable items on your list, like a specific venue or a photographer or a very specific floral designer, put those costs at the top of your list and adjust the rest according to that. And now the hard part is done. Seriously, the rest of this is going to fall into place once you've told your budget what it can and cannot do. Now it's time to research your vendors. So let's talk a little about the research phase. Now, this is where you can really save money if you do your homework. Finding budget-minded vendors starts with smart research. Leverage social media and wedding forums. Instagram and Facebook wedding groups are absolute gold mines for finding your vendors. Ask for recommendations. Reach out to, maybe you've got some friends who are recently married or family members. Surely somebody's got some referrals for you. They may have tips on budget-minded vendors who don't sacrifice quality, and that's the big thing here. Of course, saving money is what we're looking for, but we don't want to sacrifice at the same time. Book early. If money is the matter, book early and avoid peak season. If you're planning an off-season wedding, say during winter or midweek, you'll likely see lower prices from some of your vendors. Also, booking early can also help you secure better rates. A lot of your vendors, a lot of businesses in general are adjusting their costs at the end of their fiscal season. So you're looking, right now we're closing in on November. A lot of vendors have already adjusted their prices for the 2025 booking season. So just keep that in mind. Along with this, one of the smartest things to do is to make a list of 3 to 5 vendors for each service and reach out to compare their pricing and their services. Don't just settle for the first quote you get. Also, don't overwhelm yourself by contacting everyone at one time. Break it up. Dedicate a little bit of time per vendor. Maybe spend a week talking to photographers and make your notes. And once you're satisfied with that, move on to the next vendor. Next up, I'm going to say the N word, negotiate. This is a little tricky, but it can be done. Many couples are really hesitant to negotiate, but the truth is, we as vendors will often expect this. It's really just about asking the right way. And one of the best ways is just to be upfront about your budget. When you're contacting your vendors, be clear about what you can afford. Ask if there's a way to work within that range. And most vendors have the flexibility to offer those customized packages depending on your budget. Consider reducing services, not quality. We're talking about trimming off the fat. For instance, if you're hiring a photographer and maybe you only need them for 6 hours instead of a full day, or maybe you could ask a caterer for fewer courses to reduce the cost there. Another way is bundling services. If a vendor offers multiple services, for example, photography and videography, see if they can offer you a package. Sometimes you can save by bundling services through vendors you've already hired rather than adding another vendor to the tab. One key thing is when you're negotiating, just be respectful. Vendors are more than willing to work with someone who values their service but is simply looking to stay within their budget. Next up, DIY. One of the easiest ways to save on vendors is to skip hiring for some services altogether by opting for DIY solutions. I've been over this in a couple of the podcasts, so I'm going to keep it brief for this one. Easy things to DIY: centerpieces, wedding favors, your invitations. That's going to save you a lot of money just in those three things. Craft stores, online resources like Etsy offer great DIY supplies and templates. Another thing you can do is enlist some friends and family. Many of us have a friend or an aunt or a mom or somebody who bakes, so you can do a dessert table instead of 15 pounds of cake that nobody's going to eat. But here's an easy one: rent versus buy. Another way is to buy from Facebook wedding groups, maybe with the intent of returning the savings to another bride after your big day. But be careful, especially on your DIY projects. Keep an eye on the time requirements that's going to take you. Sometimes the time and effort involved outweighs the savings. So just be careful to keep those DIYs manageable. Lastly here, read your contracts carefully. I can't say this loudly enough. Read your contracts. Once you've found those vendors within your budget, you've got to read that fine print. You're going to look for hidden fees. Some contracts include extra fees. Maybe it's overtime, maybe it's taxes, this thing or that thing or the other. You want to make sure that you understand exactly what's included in the package. The last thing that you want is to get to the day of your event and you thought something that was coming is not coming, or you got extra things coming that you didn't know were coming, and now you need to adjust your layout, or the coordinator has to make room for this, that, or the other. Payment schedules. More and more vendors are allowing payment plans. I know I do. Most DJs that I know are offering payment plans. Just ensure that timeline aligns with your financial plans, and clarify your cancellation or refund policies. Double check those cancellation policies in case you need to make changes to your date or your services down the line. Maybe last minute you're adding a photo booth, or maybe last minute you're thinking that maybe you don't need that dancing on the cloud. Just make sure that you know what's in those policies so that you can plan accordingly. And a lot of vendors are going to offer that flexibility if changes are made in advance. One tip here is, don't hesitate to ask for clarification on anything that you don't understand. A proper contract is going to protect both you and us, the vendors. So wrapping this up here, it's a simple roadmap to hiring your budget-minded wedding vendors. Remember, start with a budget, start with a solid budget, do your research, negotiate with respect and confidence, and consider your DIYs carefully. Most importantly, stay flexible and open-minded. It really is possible to create the wedding of your dreams without overspending. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. This is Wedded Whispers. You can find us on Facebook, on YouTube. Please, if you find favor in what I'm trying to do here, would you consider subscribing and sharing this with your soon-to-be married couples? And come join our Facebook group at Wedded Whispers on Facebook. I'm your DJ Willie D. Happy planning, and I will see you between now and then.